Welcome everyone to today's webinar on faith-driven investing. My name is Mark Lasang. I am the founder and managing member of Financial Cornerstones. We are a registered investment advisory company. Our focus is on investment management with biblical values. We also do financial planning. I'm a certified financial planner and also a chartered market technician. I'm also a member of the National Association of Christian Financial Consultants and of Kingdom Advisors. These are professional organizations of investment professionals. I hold the degree of certified Kingdom Advisor, and I've been working in the financial advisory business since 2007. But I first learned about biblically responsible investing in 2010, and I was convicted. I've been practicing this ever since. Today, as part of our webinar, we have representatives from an investment firm that we work and partner with, Timothy Plan Funds. They'll be part of this webinar, and I'll be introducing them a little bit later. Also, if you have any questions, there's a box at the bottom of your screen in the panel. Just put your questions in there, and we'll try to answer those at the end. Kendall will be here to moderate and help with the poll questions that we'll be asking during the webinar. So I'll begin by sharing my screen with you all. So first, I'll have a disclaimer that I need to read, and I'll just summarize. These are our opinions. They're not specific advice. They're here to provide you education. As you know, past performance is no indication of future returns. We at Financial Cornerstones give advice only when a client service agreement is in place. So there's the full disclaimer. I just want to summarize it for everyone. We do that for regulatory compliance. But our goal is to help you align your investments and financial decisions with the cornerstone of your faith. The objectives today was we're going to talk about what biblically responsible investing is and why you should be doing it. We're going to talk about how it's implemented. We're going to dispel the myths of biblically responsible investing. And of course, as I mentioned, we're going to be introducing one of our partners and a product that we use with Timothy Plan Funds. And finally, are your questions, and we have a free offer for you at the end. So the first poll question, Kendall, if you can pull up this question. So the question is, when you own a stock or mutual fund, do you physically participate and represent what the company produces or who they serve? So we'll begin the poll about 15 more seconds. If you can just click either yes, no, or you're not sure. So the answers are coming in. We'll give you another few more seconds. And I think most people have answered now. So we'll go ahead and end the poll and share the results. So we have about 60%. Most people said no, we don't participate. 20% yes, and some equal amount said I'm not sure. So let's talk about this right now. So the basic idea of investing in stocks is to participate and benefit from the growth and earnings of a company. And we do this by share ownership. But the corporation represents the investor. In so much as the corporation acts on the investor's behalf, the investor is actually co-owner or co-author of what the corporation does, either right or wrong, and therefore is morally co-responsible for the company's actions and its products. So stock is ownership of the company. You physically are part of the company. Now, we as Christians believe that in the sanctity of life, that we believe in the sanctity of life from birth to natural death. But in the world today, there's a cultural battle that's going on, and it continues in many public companies. These companies are clearly involved in their support of abortion, and we have things like the manufacturing of abortion pills, like morning after pill, embryonic stem cell research, using corporate funds to abortion promotion legislation, or even directly giving to companies like Planned Parenthood. Now, this has intensified recently, especially with the decision of the Supreme Court, Dobbs versus Jackson's Women's Health Organization. And there's been a shift. So we have many companies doing things like pledging funds to help employees get abortions, direct funding of that. We can't forget also about pornography and how it's right now unfiltered on the internet. We have some very disturbing statistics right now in society. We have 1 in 10 children have watched pornography by the time they were 9. 73% of teens watching pornography online. Over half have watched it before they were 13. Here's a quote from Athena Shavira. She was an executive assistant at Facebook, and she said, "I am convinced that the devil lives in our phones and is wreaking havoc on our children. When these things are unfiltered, we are allowing Satan to enter the lives of our children and ourselves. And it seems that little is being done to prevent this." Now, in the 1800s, men like Karl Marx called for the abolition of the family in the Communist Manifesto. We have a picture here in 2015 when the White House was lit up with the LGBTQ colors after the Supreme Court's 5-4 decision that the 14th Amendment requires all states to grant same-sex marriages. And now we see many public companies giving press releases and blogs and other digital posts on how they are marketing things like Pride Month. So I think today no one can dispute the destruction of the family is well underway. We have statistics again. Half of all marriages are ending in divorce. Over half of children live within a single parent household, and 1 in 4 children live in a home without any father figure. That's either a biological father, stepfather, or adopted father. So what's the cause of all this? Well, we have explicit material in school curriculum, movies, video games, magazines, songs. This seems to be a generation with little to no knowledge of the beauty and value of a healthy, monogamous, and faithful relationship between a man and a woman. So we know life is about decisions, and every financial decision we make is going to have at its root a value or conviction. Financial decisions are in reality spiritual decisions because money is how we work out our belief systems, our values, our goals, our priorities. It's interesting that there's over 2,000 verses in scripture that talk about money and possessions and our use of it. So why is that? It's because God knows that our attitude toward money is an indication of where our heart is with Him, with God. So most of us work an entire life to build a financial retirement plan, and that's justified. We don't want to be a burden to society and our family, but our retirement plan must be part of our eternal retirement plan. I'm not just talking about spending wisely. I'm talking about using our money investments as a tool, and what we want the world to look like. You see, our investments really do shape society, and our investments are a vote on how we can bring morality into the world. So the question is God calling you to be a steward of His resources? Well, we think so. And that's why the cornerstone of our business is biblically responsible investing, faith-driven investing. There are some other terms for this. That is value-based investing or morally responsible investing. These are all labels that describe investment choices based on a Christian's desire to honor God with their investment choices. So we believe that biblically responsible investing begins just like any other investment management process. We're looking for great investments, companies that create value for the shareholder, the owner, and also for others in society. So how do we begin? Well, we begin by using screening tools. One of these tools is Evaluator. It's a subscription service that we are participating in. And we do this by looking at each individual's security to see if what we own is aligning with Christian values. That's the starting point for our process. So, Kendall, if you can bring up this poll question. So what percentage of the typical mutual fund passes Christian investment screening? Is it 95%, 75, 50, or 25%? Go ahead and enter your answers now. We will end the poll in about 15 more seconds. So everything's coming in. So eValuator, I began using this product right when I started Biblically Responsible Investing. It has really allowed me to look deeply into securities and see what the company's values are. And we'll go ahead and end the poll now. So we'll share the results. So a third of you said it's 75%, and the other 2/3 said it's about 25%. So it's split there. So it's actually a bit disturbing, and I'll share the screen with you. Now, this is a sample. I've redacted the company name and the individual securities because we're really looking at what's going on in the world today. These are primarily large cap companies in this fund here. And it's one of the largest funds in the world. And if you can see the line down here with all the reds, that's lifestyle. So promotion of the anti-family values that we talked about earlier, and other things such as abortion and violent entertainment, pornography, human rights abuses as others. So we're screening these portfolios to see if they adhere with values. And unfortunately, here is about 73%. So what we're seeing in today's society is a lot of the investments are concentrated in only a handful of companies, and these companies aren't representing what we as Christians believe in some cases. But there are a lot of other large companies out there, mid-cap companies, smaller companies, that really are focused on their core competencies of generating value for shareholders and making the world a better place. And these are the companies that we are looking to basically be invested in. So the cornerstone of our practice is technical analysis and also fundamental analysis. And we're going to jump into this just briefly. So we use technical analysis. And by the way, I am a chartered market technician. We use this to evaluate investments by looking at price trends, volume movement, and then making a decision whether or not we want to own the security after it's been screened with Christian screening. We also use fundamental analysis, and that's looking at companies based on their sales, their earnings, and the economy, and also the company management. So here's a study of technical analysis. Now, don't let your eyes glaze over. I'll explain it in very simple terms. But what we're seeing here is price movement in these red and white bars of the price of a stock moving up and down. We have support and resistance lines, areas where we predetermined that potentially this price movement will stop or potentially begin again. And then oscillators, where we track the movement based on averages and volume and other indicators. And there's many more that we look at to see if this is a security that we should be considering to enter into the portfolio. We also use fundamental analysis. Companies like CFRA and Argus are companies that specialize in fundamental studies of company valuations, also whether we should sell the company, hold the company, or buy the company. Both of these go into the equation of us deciding what goes into your portfolio after we screened it for Christian values. And we also rebalance the portfolios. So there's times when we have securities that increase in value, and we know that maintaining a target asset allocation is important to help you meet your investment goals. So why do we rebalance? Well, for that reason, and also because sometimes there are companies that fall out of favor, maybe management, maybe a product. Think of companies like Kodak and RCIA. We really don't hear about these companies anymore. So sometimes we don't want to hold things for very long periods of time. Now, all of this is combined into what we call a portfolio model. And we have sleeves. We have exchange traded fund sleeves. We have stock sleeves. We may have alternative sleeves. And that, when of course it says BRI, that's an acronym for Biblically Responsible Investing. These portfolios are designed to help you meet your objectives. And in each sleeve, we're looking at how that sleeve and the components of that sleeve, I'm sorry, that how this sleeve is benchmarking against an index. And if it's not, then something needs to change. So we're continuously monitoring these portfolios to meet our investment objectives. So poll question. Kendall, if you can bring this one up. What do you think is the performance? Let's see, here we go. The performance of faith-based investments compared to your normal secular investments. In other words, companies that are using faith-based investments, but really focused on producing good products, not worrying about the social agendas or being politically correct or anything that they're just focused on producing good products that help society. And we will end the poll. So we'll share the results. 80% of you said the same. 20% or a fifth said lower returns. So here's something interesting I want to share with you. This is a study that was done by the Christian Investment Forum, and it was a 15-year study. And you'll see the results. It's the blue funds represent a basket, a return of 44 Christian faith funds, and it compared it against just generic funds. You can see that the returns are similar, potentially some cases better than your generic returns. So often hear that faith-based funds, they don't perform well. Well, we can see that's not true, that they're expensive. Well, we're looking at performance returns, and from what I've seen, there's not a whole lot of difference between these two. The results are similar, potentially even better. So we are certified financial planners, and we do more than just investment management. We go beyond that. We work with our clients on retirement distributions, income strategies, tax planning, risk management. We work with your attorneys for your estate planning and also plan giving. And really, we should be really focused on charitable giving, how we're using our resources wisely and helping others. So we believe financial planning is badly needed now. And here's some statistics. Over half Americans are saying right now, and this is a CNBC poll, that they're not on track to retire comfortably. When I say comfortably, that's meeting their basic needs. 11% of Americans, only 11%, max out their 401ks. 46% say they're only contributing as much as they can afford. And here's a statistic from the National Institute on Retirement Security. Very disturbing. 40% of Americans live only off of Social Security. So do you think we need to start financially planning our life? We say yes, and we use tools to do that. Here's an example where we take your investments, all your financial decisions, and we look at where you are, and then we say, here's our recommendations and where you need to be. And we're looking for you to not be a burden to society and others, but to be a steward to others. And we want to be deliberate. We want to have structured decisions, and we want to have clear goals. So every decision we make, whether we're conscious of it or not, as we said, it communicates some information about us to other people. We believe that our message should be in obedience to the Lord. And we also see that Scripture shows us how quickly things can go wrong if we do not follow God's path. And this starts in the beginning of Scripture in Genesis. Just look at the story of the garden in Eden and how things went awry there. Now, here's the good news for all of you. There are increasing opportunities for everyday investors to use mutual funds and exchange-traded funds in seeking what we call kingdom impact. And we've shown some of the companies here. It's not an exhaustive list, but these are not recommendations, but we encourage you to research these, talk about them with your investment professionals. Most importantly, pray and invite God into your stewardship journey. Now, one of the companies we have here today is Timothy Plan Funds. I was first introduced to Timothy Plan Funds in 2010 when I began my journey in faith-based investing. And we have two representatives of the company from Timothy Plan, Brian Mumpert, who's the Vice President and Regional Sales Executive, and David Moore, their Senior ETF Specialist. They will talk briefly about their company and one of the products that we began using here at Financial Cornerstones. We use some of their other exchange traded funds, but there's a new product that I thought it'd be interesting for them to talk about. So let's bring them on.
All right. Thank you, Mark.
Yep.
Thank you, Mark. Yeah, as Mark said, it's been a really neat journey, getting to know him and seeing his change in practice, and just the desire to follow God in all that he does, especially in his workplace. And here at Timothy Plan, I've been here 17 years now of the almost 30 years that we've been in existence. We are really the pioneer or originator in this space of what Mark has called biblically responsible investing. And that's not to say that we're the best at everything, but we felt called to really provide an investment product that really matched up with the Christian values that we all said that we had. And Art Alley, who is our founder, initially thought that would look like a retirement plan for non-denominational pastors. Ultimately, that turned into the mutual funds and the ETFs that we have today. And as Mark has so graciously pointed out, we take a very strong stance on big issues like abortion and pornography to ensure that none of those companies will be in the portfolios. Because, again, as Mark was talking about, as a shareholder, I'm part owner of these companies. And whether that is the most smallest amount possible of a gigantic company like Apple or a larger shareholder of a much smaller company, the reality is that I participate in the profits and the business of what they do. And ultimately, if that company donates to Planned Parenthood, or that company manufactures the morning after pill, or that company posts pornographic websites and it's in my portfolio as a shareholder, does that line up with what I feel would be a steward of the money that God has entrusted to me? And so it's been a privilege working with Mark over these years. We love introducing people to this idea of investing. As he showed, there's a lot of great options in this space, which is phenomenal because it gives you as investors a choice to really get competitive returns in different aspects. And now I'd like to hand it over to David really quick to talk about that unique fund that Mark referenced here earlier. But I think that David is frozen and he lost.
Yeah, it looks like we lost David for a moment there. I'm sure he'll jump back on, but if not, can you just briefly
I sure can.
introduce that?
Yes. So what Mark was talking about, this unique product, we introduced, like I said, mutual funds 30 years ago, almost. ETFs, we've been in this marketplace for 4 years. And why do we do ETFs? Why would Mark use ETFs? Because ETFs offer competitive returns at a lower price to you, the consumer, which is very important because we know that in this world you have a lot of choices, and the lower the cost that we can offer to people, the lower the barrier to entry. And so you have your standard ETFs like large mid-cap core, high dividend, broad asset classes. But the new one that we introduced earlier this year is market neutral. And it sounds fancy, but it's a really interesting way to just say it's an investment product that is neutral of the way the market goes. And I know you all have probably seen the news. Obviously, on everyone's mind right now is Israel and what's going on over there, and the volatility that has created in the market, the uncertainty that is in the market, really is pushing stocks all over the place. And so with a product that is neutral of the market, what you have is the ability to invest in an ETF that doesn't go up and down in extremes like the market does. But essentially what it does is it invests in 300 companies. You take the 300 largest US large cap companies that pass the filters of Timothy Plan, the 300 small cap companies, and 300 international companies. And you invest in all of those companies. And then you short a broad index over the top of those. And what it does is it creates a product where you don't get the market volatility, but you are able to offer a dividend that is very attractive. And David's come back on the line so he can pick it up. David, I was just describing the 300 companies that were in the portfolio and shorting the broad index over them.
Thank you. And thank you, Mark. Sorry about that. My computer got hot and shut down, so I had to cool it down real quick. So we'll go to the whiteboard. And what we do in this methodology is to simply find, as Brian was saying, 300 securities in 3 different buckets. We take into consideration 3 buckets, and this is large cap, which means large companies in America, large cap international, and small cap. And all of these are high dividend strategies. So we have 100 securities in each one of these. These 100 securities are designed to provide about a 4.5% dividend, and that is gross. So we take those 3 100 baskets and put them into one basket, creating what's called TPMN, which is Timothy Plan Market Neutral. And we have about a gross yield of about 5.5% dividend. But in order to make it market neutral, to remove the market fluctuation, then we short the relative index. So what you're left with when you have 300 securities that are paying a gross dividend of around 5.5%, what you're left with is market volatility. So how do we remove it? We remove the market volatility by shorting the index through managed futures. So we're shorting the index. So what happens if you own a security and you short the security? You're left with market neutral. And if that doesn't pay any dividend, then you're left with nothing. It's just a stock. You're playing the stock's value play, trying to become market neutral. When you have stocks that have dividend income, and then you short the index, you're left with the dividend minus the cost of shorting. So it's going to be approximately 4% dividend paid out to the investor. So it is a great alternative to that fixed income side of a portfolio. This is not an equity play. This is simply a place for fixed income portion of a portfolio. So with that, I'll open it up for any questions.
So David, we're going to have questions at the end. So we'll go ahead. Any of you that have questions, go ahead and enter them in the panel, and Kendall will tabulate those, and we'll answer those at the end.
So we are very excited about the relationship with Mark and the growth of his company and his practice, and what he's done for his clients is making an impact spiritually, but also making a huge impact in their personal lives. I appreciate that relationship.
Yeah. Thank you, Brian and David. These are our products that we use, that we just try, and it's not a very large part of the portfolio, but what we're trying to do, like Brian mentioned, is to mitigate risk in portfolios. We use their equity ETFs. We also have fixed income ETFs that we use, but a large part of what we're doing is in the stock marketplace in those portfolios that we build. So let me move forward here. So here's a free tool for you. Now, this is on our website, investcornerstones.com. On our website, if you scroll all the way to the bottom of the first page, you will see this screen here. What's in your portfolio? Screen it, clean it. This is a link to one of these tools we use, Evaluator. And if you sign up for a free account, it will allow you to get 5 reports on mutual funds or stocks to see if they align with your Christian values. I encourage you to take advantage of this. This is about a $500 value. Now, if you want to speak with us, reach out to us. Again, on our website, there's a link where you can schedule a consultation. Investcornerstones.com is our website, or call us directly, 832-400-2400. So questions. We'll go ahead and see if anyone has questions that we can answer. And we'll, Kendall, if you can help us out here.
Yeah, we have about 4 questions. The first one is, what is an ETF?
Okay. I'll let David, he is a senior ETF specialist with Timothy Plan, and answer that question.
Absolutely. Most people in the investment world are familiar with mutual funds, and mutual funds been around since 1926, which is just a common pooling of money, and it's structured as a corporation. It is a subchapter M corporation. In 1993, there was a petition to create an additional method of investing, and it allowed investors to create, or companies to create, what's called an exchange traded fund. And that exchange traded fund is also a common pool of investments, but it's structured a little differently. It is a trust. It is not a corporation. And because it's a trust, it falls under different tax rules than a mutual fund. A mutual fund has to distribute its capital gains throughout at the end of each year, where an ETF is not required to do so if they do things properly inside of the ETF. So they look a lot the same from the outside, but when you look under the hood, there's several advantages. Number one, an ETF is more tax efficient, it's more cost efficient, and it's more investment efficient. So ETFs are probably going to, well, they're not going to replace mutual funds for a very long time, but the market share is definitely moving in the ETF space, into the ETF space.
Good explanation. Thank you, David. Yeah. Kendall, another question we may have?
Yes. So there's a question that says, can the screens be used for mutual funds only, or for stocks?
David, I'll let you talk about Evaluator, if that's okay.
Evaluator is a software system that allows you to screen individual securities, ETFs, or mutual funds. In a mutual fund, which may have 300 or 400 securities in it, it's going to be a broad screen, and it's going to tell many of the companies that violate and where they violate. If you look at an individual security and have Evaluator do that evaluation, it will tell you specifically what that company does that either passes all screens or which screens that it specifically violates. So it is available specifically for individual securities or a basket like an ETF or a mutual fund.
And Brian, if you could jump up in here, I believe you guys were the originators of Evaluator. Could you talk just really briefly about the origins of it?
Certainly, yes. I mean, the origins of it, and still what it's used today is, the average consumer, you look at all these companies that are inside of a mutual fund or inside of an ETF, and in ETFs, you can see hundreds of companies in there. How do I, as the average consumer, know what XYZ company is doing? Are they funding Planned Parenthood? Are they manufacturing an abortion product? I'm not sure. This software was put together to take the research that Timothy Plan was doing and show the evidence that yes, these companies are doing these things, they're involved in this, and help consumers and advisors like Mark make decisions that allow them to invest with their values ultimately. And so it's kind of grown out from just what research we had to now advisors can use this to show their clients like Mark can do to see what exactly am I invested in. So it's a very great tool.
Yeah, thank you, Dave. Yeah, thank you, guys. And that is one of the foundations of our practice. We use this tool extensively to build portfolios. Kendall, any other questions?
Yes, it says, is the screening process a zero tolerance strategy or a partial allowance of certain bad investments?
A very good question. So I'll talk about that briefly. So the screening process, we're looking for the most egregious violations in what we consider the core issues, the sanctity of life. That's pretty much abortion. It's out. If a company is promoting, sponsoring, and paying for abortion, it's out. Pornography is another one. The issues right today of the social issues, and I'll talk about the people with gender dysphoria or same-sex attraction. We're looking for companies that are actively promoting the lifestyle. There may be times when a company, let's say 2 or 3 years ago, made a small donation to one of these activist organizations in one of their regions in a divisions. Well, we don't typically look at that as maybe a violation. But if a company is actively promoting these things that are destroying the nuclear family, then yes, it's out. So it's we use eValuator extensively. Their research is vast, and they look at these things a bit more granular than we can, working with clients individually, managing portfolios. So that's kind of how we answer the question. So for the most part, yeah, if a company violates anything that Christians find objectionable, we really can't invest in that company. But the benefit is there's eValuator. I didn't show this, gives you many other companies in that same sector that are great investments that we can consider for adding to the portfolio. Okay. How many more questions do we have?
We just got a couple left. One says, are there faith-based funds available in 401ks? And if not, how do I get my company to do this?
A good question. Fortunately, there's not very many options. Now we can use eValuator to look at secular funds to see if they're, in line with Christian values. To get your company to participate in it, that's when you speak to your executives in your company and especially get access to the benefits provider and see either if they have it or if they allow it. I've worked with some people in the past that have companies that have funds in there that they're part of their 401k platform. David, I'm sorry, Brian, you may have a little bit more information about this since you guys are heavily in the mutual fund space.
Yeah, there are a few select companies, but unfortunately, a lot of the 401k space is controlled by the larger players that many of you are probably familiar with. That really build a fence around what they'll allow within the 401k. Even across the spectrum of the other products that Mark had put up earlier, there's not a whole lot of options, unfortunately, out there for the Christian to invest in any of these companies in a 401k.
Yeah. Okay. Any other questions?
I have a question. How is your fee structured?
Okay, the fee structure is actually on the website. It shows on our website, you go to a transparent fees. That gives great detail, but in general, we work typically under assets under management. It's in tiers. So as you invest more money with us, the costs actually reduce. So we do that primarily because we're working in your best interest and advice. We're not selling a product. We're not commission brokers. We're investment advisors. So it typically results in about 1% of investments under management. We charge on the investments, not the cash balances. And if you would like to discuss it further, you can set up a consultation with me and I'll go through the details on the process, the products that we offer, and the charges for the services. But in general, I can say, in all transparency, it's about 1% of assets under management. And again, as your assets grow, there are discounts for additional tiers of assets.
Okay. And I only have one question left. It says, if I sell all of my funds and move the money to biblically responsible funds, will there be taxes to pay?
Good question. So the answer is yes and no, depending upon what account the investments are in. So if they're in a IRA or a Roth IRA, that is, there's no taxable consequence for selling the assets. In an IRA, you're actually charged as you withdraw it in retirement, ordinary income on the money that you withdraw from your portfolio. Roth IRA, obviously, it's taxed on, we'll call it taxed on the seed. The harvest is not taxed, and any transactions you do within that account are not taxable transactions. Now, if you have an individual account, yes, there potentially may be taxable consequences. And taxes are either long-term capital gains, which are taxed either at 0, 15, or 20%, and short-term gains, which are taxed as your ordinary income marginal bracket. So there may be consequences there from a tax perspective. Here's the bottom line. Anytime you make a gain on any product, there is taxes that we have to pay on it. That's how our government, our system operates. But what we do with individuals that say, hey, Mark, I want to move my portfolio to you. It's a taxable account. How do we go about doing this? Well, we evaluate it, and sometimes it takes a period of 6 to 12 months to eventually sell the securities, not to put a financial burden on you, and to move those assets or allow them moved into the short-term capital gains category, into the long-term capital gains category.
That's all the questions I have with it showing up.
Oh, fantastic. All right. Well, listen, I want to thank everyone for joining us today. It's an honor being able to talk to you about what faith-driven investing is, how it aligns with our Christian values. And I thank David and Brian for coming on and sharing their expertise with us and being a partner in our practice, and how we help you achieve your goals and meet your objectives in life through your investments.